Hey, this is Keith from Outlaw Speed Shop, and welcome to this episode. I am tackling a Batmobile this week in hopes of saving some face from my horrible showing at a Batmobile challenge about a week or so ago. As always, if you like the content, subscribe and don't forget to ring the bell. So if you're a follower of the channel, I did a Batmobile challenge about a week or so ago, and the goal was to take something that was never a Batmobile and make it into one. And I was horrible. It didn't come out the way I wanted. So part of it was I was going to take some parts off of this Batmobile, and I never ended up using them. So I had this casting lying around. So I'm going to be doing it the way I want to do it. So I found some wheels that I want to use, and some of this had already been hacked up, and like I said, I was going to use like the interior. I'd cut up because I was going to use the interior on the other casting, and I just never ended up doing any of it. And the whole thing was it came out horrible. So again, I'm just trying to save some face here, and I wanted, I had this casting pretty much set aside anyway, so it worked out pretty good. So I found the wheels I want to use. And if you, again, watch any of my videos, for me, it's all about the stance. And the problem that I found is these back tires are just a little too fat and a little too tall in comparison with what was on there. So I got my barrel sander, and it's, I want to say, about a 1/2 inch in diameter. And it works out perfectly. I've used it before. It really just helps add a little bit of clearance. And I didn't need much. I didn't have to go high. But the way that the wheel wells went, I had to make them a little wider, so it works out really, really well. And it really takes no time whatsoever to really just kind of clear it out just enough. I didn't want it to be obscene, but I needed it to be big enough to get those tires in so that they'd roll and fit with some clearance. And even still doing that, I had a hard time. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to cut a groove in the bottom. And so instead of putting the axle on the top, I'm going to put it on the bottom of the chassis. But in order to do that, I had to cut a decent amount out. So I'm kind of going back and forth here, trying to find a happy medium, what's going to work. And once I decided that there's no way it's going to work from the top, I cut a deep groove on the bottom, not enough to go through the chassis, but enough where it looked reasonable, and it gave it the rake that I was looking for. So this was the gray casting with the ghost flames from Hot Wheels itself. So after I strip it, I always go through with a wire brush just to get all the gobbledygook out. And there's a lot of stuff that sits in the lines, the casting lines, and everything for the doors, and there's a hood. So that just helps get everything out. I use the citrus strip to clean out, and that usually works for the most part pretty decent. So with this casting, I wanted to add a motor to the front. Now, I know it's got the turbine jet thing in the back, but I've got a little cigar box filled with various motor pieces that I hope to use at some point, so I never throw anything away, unfortunately. And this just happens to be some of the stuff. I've been trying to segregate all my crap because it's just been, I forget I have stuff. That's the problem. I take apart so much. So I've got a couple different motors. I like the Hillborn style injection that comes with the Bone Shaker. And I had a couple different variations, but the Bone Shaker one is the one I'm going to go with. It seems to be just the right scale for this casting. So I'm not one to usually measure a whole hell of a lot. But the tough part with a lot of these sometimes is the posts stick down right where you want to cut to put the engine. And this one was far enough forward, but I had to make sure I measured properly and make sure I, made clearance so that I didn't hit that post. Worked out on this one for a change. So after I cut out the hole, which is really, I just drilled a bunch of pilot holes, then used my jeweler's saw to hack out the rest, and a file to clean it up. The Bone Shaker engine I pretty much had to cut almost, I'd say 90% of it away, so it was just pretty much the stacks. It kind of a shame, but it is what it is, and it sacrificed itself for the greater good. But the getting it to fit, inside there, plus I had to think about the interior, which is another whole issue that I had to steal something from another car. I pretty much had to grind most of it away. So, and that's all part of customizing. It's cutting and fitting and grinding and cutting and fitting and grinding, and it's a lot of back and forth. So I had another Batmobile kicking around, and I'm not being too cautious with this, obviously, but I needed the interior out of it because, again, the one, actually you can see it off there to the left, it was a black interior, and I'd cut it up for the other casting, and I never ended up using it, and it just wasn't working for what I needed for this, obviously. So I took the one out of the other Batmobile, and now I have a complete gray interior, which I'll paint anyways. So again, I'm fitting everything, making sure that now that I have a full interior piece, that the motor's going to fit, the front wheels are going to work. It's not going to sit too low. It's not going to sit too high. Again, it's all about fitting, and I try to do all this before I paint, because the last thing you want to be doing, and I've done it, and trying to fit everything, and after it's painted and find out you missed something or it doesn't quite fit right, it's frustrating as hell. So obviously making sure you do all that ahead of time makes a huge difference. So you can see right there how I've got the engine fit in there. And because I'm going a certain route on this one, I'm going to take my polishing cream and I'm going to polish the heck out of this casting. I do it 2 or 3 times with this stuff. I don't remember, I can't see the name of it actually, but it works really good. I got it at AutoZone. And out of all the polish I have, this stuff seems to work the best. I'm happy with it anyways, but I've used other ones too with good results. So really, I'm just kind of going with a slow speed, like you're polishing a car. You kind of work it in a little bit, and then you can pick up the speed a little bit on your Dremel or whatever it is you're using. And again, I went through this 2 or 3 times. And then when it was all done, I took my soft wheel, it's more like a terry cloth, and just kind of went over it one final time just to get everything polished, looking really good. This casting was actually a very nice casting. There was no major casting lines on it. There wasn't a ton to grind out. And overall, I was pretty happy with it. As you can see, I think it came out really nice as far as polishing goes. And then really when you polish, you have to make sure you clean to get all that polish off. So I do a combination of soap and hot water, mineral spirits, and then I'll use some degreaser right before I go into the spray booth, because each step you end up getting a little bit more off, and it helps with the paint and making sure it sticks and there's no bad surface. This Zep stuff works awesome, by the way. So my Wicked Pisser Jar, as you guys know, when I hit 12,000 subscribers, I decided that when I hit 14, I was going to give the contents of a jar away. As you can see, I've been adding to it every week. And when I hit 14,000 subscribers, I will give the contents away to 1 subscriber. You have to be subscribed. I'm about halfway right now. I think I'm at 13.2. And each week I add something else. And this week I am going to be adding something out of my personal collection that I've been holding on to, but I'm going to put it in the jar anyways. And that is going to be this Muscle Machines Anglia. I love these things because I use the wheels and I use the motors and everything else. So anyways, so I'm going to go with some Bright Vision Spectra Flame, or whatever they want to call it, red. And with this stuff, you can paint it right out, use it right out of the bottle, but I'm adding some reducer. I'll be adding 1 part reducer for every 1 part paint. And then it's got a hardener in it. And what that does as well, that's in the little jar, that makes it so I don't have to clear coat it if I decide I don't want to. You can put a clear coat. I've put a 2K clear coat on the Bright Vision paints with no issues whatsoever. But I don't always do it, so this time I decided I wasn't going to do it. And as you can see, I had a hard time getting the cap off. It's a problem with most hardeners anyways. But yeah, I think it's 4-to-1 on their hardener. But it works really good. It does dry nice and hard, and it doesn't affect the finish whatsoever. So if you're going to use it, you might as well use the hardener. And thanks to this virus bullshit, I still haven't got to the store to get a filter. You can see I was kind of spraying the booth down to keep all the dust down. I did vacuum it and clean it, even though it looks dirty as hell. So, with like most paints, especially Spectraflame style paints or candy paints, you have to put on a very light coat. Now I'm moving fast, and it looks like there's a ton coming out, but there's not. And what that does is kind of just gives you a little bit of a tack coat. And after that, you can progressively add more and more. Like right here, I'm on my 4th and final coat. I kind of skipped a few because I'm not going to bore you with it. And you can go, at this point, you can go pretty heavy. You just got to go evenly, so that way you get a nice even finish, because it will show, especially with like a candy or a Spectraflame style paint. And this stuff goes on amazing. So. And so does the Redline Shop stuff. I mean, I've never had a problem with either, as long as you follow the simple procedures. So as you can see, I painted the interior from the gray to black, and it's more like a satin black. What I want to do is the pipes on the back that stick out for the exhaust that actually go up behind the rear seats, I wanted to use real pipe. So it's got 3 pipes now. So, and I'm going to keep 3 pipes, but I wanted to separate them so that way I can use some aluminum tube. So I had to separate them and grind them down a little bit so my 1/8 tube will actually fit on them, which worked out really well. And then I can cut them to the different lengths. The red windscreen or windshield I decided to keep. I thought it was going to look pretty good, but the separator that goes right down the middle, I decided to paint that the black. And then I was going to highlight certain details. I left the light red, obviously, and then I used a little bit of chrome on the edges. And then I wanted to do the seat inserts and a couple things on the interior red just to kind of make it pop. And I try to add, I didn't want the whole car to be red, and I wanted to be different. I didn't want to go with the black. I kind of made it like this was Robin's car, not Batman's car. So again, it's personal preference. I mean, everybody's got their own take on things. I wanted to be somewhat different, and I like black. Black's one of my favorite colors, but again, I wanted the car to kind of stand out, and I think in the end I did make that happen. But it's these little details that, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, it's all the little details that you can put in that pull your eye and just add to the whole thing. So there's the finished paint job on the actual body itself. And again, there's no clear coat on this. This is just straight Bright Vision paint. So I'm going to highlight with I know all my fans are going to bust my balls on this, but I'm using the Lead Belcher paint from Citadel, which again is like a silver aluminum color, and it's one of my favorites, obviously. But I'm using it for the turbine, and because it's red, I was able to keep the inside red, so it actually looks like it's firing, so it looks really cool. And then I got my mad scientist goggles because I can't see crap up close, and when I don't use them, I tend to shake way too much the closer I try to get something. So I'm using the Abaddon Black from Citadel as well. I'm going to hit all the grill pieces, front and rear, just to give it a little bit more pop and to make it stand out, as you can tell. So you can see all the pieces pretty much ready for assembly at this point. As always, huge shout out to my Patreon fans. You guys help feed the addiction and keep this channel going. I appreciate it. So this is the end result. I love it. I think it came out really good. I'm super stoked on how it looks with the engine, with the paint, with the pipes, the wheels, the details. I love everything about it. I hope you guys do as well. If you have any ideas or thoughts, or whether you like it or hate it or indifferent, let me know now in the comments down below. And stick around, I got a ton of pictures, and I will catch you on the next one.